Hey everyone, welcome to episode 15 of Food Culture Curious. On this week's episode, we have Maria Eugenia Rodriguez Leon, a board-certified renal dietitian who's going to talk to us all about her Puerto Rican food culture, as well as how she works with the CKD population and patients on dialysis to help make their plant-based diet more culturally inclusive. I did want to give everybody a heads up. There is noise in the background that kind of sounds like feedback, but actually it's the crickets and coquis from Puerto Rico. So those are little frogs that make a croaking sound. In case you hear something in the background, that's what it is. But this is a great episode. I really hope y'all enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to Food Culture Curious. I'm a registered dietitian on a mission to help healthcare professionals be more culturally competent with their nutrition recommendations. Today we have Maria Eugenia Rodriguez Leon. She is a registered dietitian who is board certified in renal nutrition with 14 years of experience in the kidney space. She's from Puerto Rico and owns a virtual private practice where she works with Spanish-speaking patients who live with CKD and helps them slow down their disease progression. Welcome, Maria.
Oh, hi.
Thank you so much for being on here. We've actually talked a lot on Instagram because we have very similar paths. We're those rare Latinas working in the kidney space.
Yes, happy to see you and talk to you today.
We'll go ahead and jump right into it. So we want to learn more about the Puerto Rican food culture. Can you tell me about, just in general, what food cultures do you associate with?
So, yes, I do live in Puerto Rico, so I associate with the Puerto Rican cuisine. Yes.
What were your common proteins, starches, and produce growing up?
So, usually here in Puerto Rico, as protein, we have pork, we have chicken, we also have fish and seafood because we're in an island. And also beans can be counted also as a protein source, and we usually eat rice and beans, so that can also count. We usually have eggs, also ham for breakfast, and some other meats, processed meats like maybe sausages, corned beef, jamonilla. So those are some of the proteins people here enjoy. Also the bacalao, which is the codfish, the dried one, that's also very popular here. For the starches, as I mentioned, rice, white rice usually. We also have pastas. We also eat root vegetables. Here we call them viandas. So these include plantilla, malanga, ñame. So they are all similar to like potatoes. They can be boiled and they can be fried also. And produce, well, we have some local produce. So pineapple, mangoes. We also have avocados here in the island. We have bananas too, so also bananas are grown here. So yeah.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit about your cooking methods, some common cooking oils and spices.
Okay, so for spices, we usually use adobo. We use sofrito, which is usually made of onions, garlic, recao, which is culantro, cilantro, some ajíes, which are type of small peppers, not spicy, and that is all processed. And we usually use it as a base in most of our dishes. We also use sazon, which is made from the annatto seeds that give foods its red like color. So instead of using like paprika or turmeric, we here usually use that, some seasonings that have that annatto seeds. Also, here in Puerto Rico, we can do an oil, a red oil with those seeds, and that can also be used to give color to foods. So, for example, we can use it when we're making rice. If we want to have like a rice and beans and have it like a yellowish color, then that will be used for the color. It is also used for making pasteles. which is one of our traditional dishes, which is similar to tamales in the aspect that is filled with maybe pork or chicken, but instead of corn on the outside, it's a root vegetable mixture, and it's covered in plantain leaves, and then it's boiled. So that's one of our typical holiday Christmas dishes. And usually we use the oil with the annatto seeds when preparing the pasteles before putting the masa on top of the plantain leaf. So other seasonings we use cilantro, we use the recao. So when we're making stewed beans, for example, we can use recao, and we can use also hojas de laurel, which now can't remember the word in English. And we use cumin and oregano. So those are our top spices. For the oils, we usually use vegetable oils. So either corn, either canola, olive oil. Those are the most popular. And then cooking methods, we can fry. We fry lots of things, but we also boil. So, for example, I was talking about the root vegetables. So, for example, we can eat boiled plantains, but we can eat them fried too. We used fried plantains to do mofongo, which is also one of our typical dishes. In República Dominicana, they boil the plantains and they do mango. So that's a little bit different. So it's the same ingredient, but it's cooked differently. And other cooking methods, we can saute in a pan, or also we can bake. So, yes.
Awesome. And you already mentioned some of your traditional dishes with the pasteles and the mofongo. Are there any other common dishes that you feel like, okay, you come to Puerto Rico, you have to try this?
Yes. So there's a few, like for Christmas, we usually do the arroz con gandules, or rice with pigeon peas. But we can also eat that throughout the year. But we usually see them with the Christmas, our Christmas plate. We'll have the pasteles, we'll have the arroz con gandules, pernil, which is like baked pork dish. Also, it's traditional to have the pig roasted on open fire. So some places you'll see the whole pig, and for long periods of time being cooked while it's turning. So yes, that is something traditional during the holidays. But if you come, there's a specific place here in Puerto Rico, Guabate, which is near Calle. It's about 45 minutes from San Juan, and you'll have a lot of places they'll use that you will see it. So you can have that traditional Christmas plate throughout the whole year. Um, Plantains, fried plantain is something very typical here. We also do the viandas con bacalao, which is those root vegetables, usually boiled with olive oil on top. And then we do the serenata of bacalao, which is codfish, that dried codfish. We boil it so it's not that salty. And then we add olive oil, we add onions. Some people will add tomatoes, some people will add avocado. So it's like a cold salad, like
Mhm.
fish salad with some vegetables, and then you'll have it with the boiled root vegetables. We also do asopaos, which is like a soup, usually with rice, and it could be with chicken, it could be with shrimp, and also it can be with gandules. So those would be asopao de pollo, asopao de camarones, or asopao de gandules, which are soups. And then we have the sancocho too. So the sancocho is another type of soup, made with the root vegetables, boiled vegetables in this case, and usually with some kind of protein. It could be pork or chicken, and that is also something very typical.
Lots of things to try. One
Yes.
day I'll make it out there. So tell me a little bit about the sweeter side of things, some Puerto Rican desserts or maybe drinks.
Yes. So the desserts, we have flan, which usually is a custard. It's made with eggs, condensed milk, vanilla, and it has a caramel. So usually you put all the ingredients in a blender, and then on the mold you melt some sugar so you have the caramel, and then you pour the mixture on the mold, and then you bake it in baño de Maria, which is like you put yeah, you put it in water, and then it takes about an hour, and then you put it in the fridge so it gets cold, and then you put the mold on a plate, you invert it, and then the caramel is on top. So that's flan. And you can change the flavor. So vanilla is like the traditional, but you can do a coconut flan, you could do a cream cheese, like a flan de queso, which is with cream cheese. So there's different flavors that you can add to it. Here we also make several sweets with guava. So guava with cheese, and it's a guava paste. So it's like the guava fruit with sugar, and it's usually accompanied with cheese, or it could be inside other like pastries. So we have like pastelillos de guayaba, which is like hojaldre, which is like a puff pastry, and then you put inside the guava, and then on top you can put some powdered sugar, and that you can find as an appetizer in many gatherings, or in our local bakeries you can go, and in addition to our types of bread that we have a sweet bread, you can see all these pastries. What else sweet? Oh, we have the majorcas too. So that's a type of bread, a sweet bread, and you can eat it plain with powdered sugar on top, but you can also make sandwiches with it. So my daughters they actually had one for snack today, which they put inside ham and cheese, and then you put it in a toaster, so it's like grilled cheese,
Mhm.
but then you eat it. The majorca, usually you can eat it like a room temperature, but that way you eat it like hot.
Nice. That sounds delicious.
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. You even went a little bit into the holiday stuff, which is nice to hear about since Christmas is coming up. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to switch to talking about the populations you work with, your niche, especially the Puerto Rican population. So what do you feel are some nutrition challenges for the Puerto Rican population?
I think I can mention a few. First of all, I think our food is expensive because most of our food comes imported. It's about 85% of what comes from the United States. So food is getting every time more and more expensive. So I think that can be a challenge, because eating healthy, eating more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains, that could be expensive, more fish. So yes, the price of foods. Also, I'm thinking of the kidney patients, getting them late in their kidney disease. So for me, one of the most important things is that people get diagnosed early, so we can give them the best opportunity of being without needing a dialysis or a transplant for the longest time. And all the misinformation. So internet is great. Thanks to the internet, we have met each other, and we can meet other dietitians that are doing great work. But then there's a lot of misinformation, and sometimes it's really hard to have the patient trust you with the information that maybe they're hearing that's the opposite. So maybe I'm telling them, yes, you can eat beans, yes, you can eat whole grains, you shouldn't avoid fruits and vegetables, and they're reading or hearing other things from the internet or from other non-reliable sources. So those are some of the challenges I think we face.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with the the outdated information, right? Some nephrologists or even like well-meaning, healthcare professionals and nurses, they're just going off of the old guidelines. So I can see how you would get patients that are saying, but my doctor said don't have beans. My doctor said don't have bananas. My doctor said, that
Mhm.
can be very challenging. Any other myths that you hear that are hard to kind of replace?
I think there's still like this idea that maybe plant based eating is hard, or plant based eating doesn't have the best quality because of the protein. Like, Puerto Ricans feel like if they don't have their meat on the plates, maybe they don't have a whole meal. So sometimes saying, yeah, you can have the rice and beans, and that's gonna be fine with your veggies and your healthy fats and your water and your fruits. So maybe not a myth, but something to challenge from what we have grown, that you have to have like a piece of chicken or fish or pork in your diet, so it's a complete meal.
No, exactly. Like you said, it's not a myth, but it's more like a belief that
Yes.
if they don't have a meat on their plate, that it's not a complete meal. So
Mhm.
how do you usually handle that? Do you have them gradually go plant-based? Do you just do it all at once?
So depending on the stage. So if I have a CKD 3, I usually tell them to start with one plant-based meal a day, and I try to give them as many as examples of our culturally appropriate foods, so they can have an idea on how their plate is gonna look like. But if they're coming in stage 4 or stage 5, there I am encouraging maybe 2 meals a day, or maybe even like gradually all of their meals. So, yes, I think at first telling them to try just one a day, and then depending on their success and how they're feeling, then we can move them forward to more than one.
Perfect. Okay. So I'd love for you to share about the different ways that you're making your virtual practice culturally inclusive. I know you have these really awesome resources. Can you talk about what you've been doing?
So I'm very happy that some nonprofit organizations from the United States have reached out, and they are really trying to get to our Hispanic population, and they have understand that not all Hispanics eat the same way. So I usually say that. I usually say I can talk a lot of the Puerto Rican cuisines, but Mexicans eat different, Colombians and people from other places, eat different. So I think it's something that there's an interest, and I've been creating recipes for the Hispanics. I've been creating some Spanish culturally appropriate handouts or webinars where we're including those foods that are typical to, at least for Puerto Rico. And I also try like to include other foods that are not the standard American diet. So yes, I do have a website. I usually write in Spanish, because I want to get to those Spanish speaking Hispanics, because there's a lot of information in English, but I feel like we have to get more Spanish, kidney friendly, easy to understand information out there.
Yeah, a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
Perfect. So, if there was a renal dietitian who is not Puerto Rican, like me, that have a Mexican background, and I have a Puerto Rican patient, what is something that you would want me to keep in mind? What are some tips for the dietitians out there?
I think that even though if you don't know like the traditional dishes Puerto Ricans eat, I think if we are honest with the client, like I am Mexican, I don't know a lot about your typical foods. Can you explain them to me? I think people will be very open to explain how they prepare their foods, or even take pictures or bring the food labels of the things they buy. So I think being willing to have an open conversation with the patient. And I also think that not telling the patient that they cannot have it, but how they can include it. So, for example, in the holidays, there are a lot of holiday foods that are high in potassium. So instead of me telling them, no, you can't have pasteles, well, I'll teach them how they can eat them. So, yes, you can have the pasteles, but be mindful that then you shouldn't be having at the same dinner or your the arroz con dulce or the tembleque, which are desserts made with coconut milk or condensed milk that can be high. So teaching them how to mix the foods and choose what they really love for that occasion. And I think people are more receptive of following the guidelines when you don't say no, but say, okay, you can have that, but then let's mix it with this that is lower in potassium or this other thing. Or how about changing this with this? What do you think? And I think clients are more receptive to that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like picking what is the most important thing to you, right? What is the thing that you have to have? And then let's pair that higher potassium food or higher phosphorus food with a variety of lower potassium, lower phosphorus foods. So we can still include that thing that you want, but make it kidney friendly.
Of course.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today about how you help the Latino population and about your food culture. If people want to work with you, how can they find you?
They can find me either on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and my website, Nutrición Renal PR. And there you can find everything in Spanish related to the kidney diet, either CKD, and I also have some materials for people that also are on dialysis.
Awesome. All right, Maria, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to my guests for being on this week's episode. If you like what you heard, take a screenshot of this episode and tag us on social. I am at Food Culture Curious on Instagram and TikTok, and we also have a Facebook group called Food Culture Curious Dietitians. If you are interested in supporting this podcast, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Food Culture Curious. Or as always, you can support by sharing, following, or rating this podcast. Every click from y'all means the world to me. And now for a quick disclaimer. Food Culture Curious is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not take the place of medical advice from licensed healthcare professionals. If you need to seek medical advice, please speak to your healthcare provider. Thank you for listening.